What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the weekend preview. You might notice my background's a little bit different today. There's no green screen. I got some nice little art up on the wall. It's not art. It's not art. I didn't like 30 seconds. But I'm back home here for the next month or so. Um just finished up finals about a week ago for college. First semester at ASU went pretty well. It was a good time. I can't say that I had like a lot of free time to like go out and hang out with people and do stuff just because football season always keeps me busy. Um, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's good. I live on the downtown campus. I personally like being downtown. I lived down there for a couple of years before, like when I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. So I like the accessibility of like walking everywhere and kind of being able to like, just kind of walk to everything. Like if I wanted to go to Suns game, I think I went to like two Suns games last semester. It's like a 10-minute walk. If I wanted to just go get food, I can go anywhere. It's in all the food on Roosevelt is like phenomenal. So much good food downtown. I think that's a perk as well too. Um, I think the only negative side of not living in Tempe is the fact that like I gotta drive to the football stadium. I gotta drive to football practice. I gotta drive to the basketball games. Like it would be so much easier um to just walk like to all the events that I'm usually at for most of the day. Other than that, great time, great semester, finished with good grades. So that's what matters the most. And Obviously football getting wrapped up this last weekend. I wasn't able to watch any of the Open Division or any of the football conference finals because I was in Dallas with Jacob Saliga watching ASU absolutely crush it. Big win over Iowa State, Big 12 championship. I can't remember the last. Oh, actually, I can. I was at the Pac-12 championship when ASU played Stanford in 2012, and I thought that game was awesome. Mind you, I'm like 6 years old. Um, the Big 12 championship was awesome, man. AT&T Stadium is lit. It's a fun environment. It's a great place to be. Um, so it was super cool to just be kind of a part of that experience and obviously to follow ASU through all this time. I don't think I'm gonna go out to the Peach Bowl only because um it's on New Year's Day, and for whatever reason, that's the day my family chose to come in town and do Christmas. So we'll be doing Christmas on New Year's Day, which seems kind of unreasonable. But it is whatever. It's. So I want to spend time with them and be here. And then if ASU wins the Peach Bowl, then I'll for sure go. I think it's the Orange Bowl. I've been hearing mixed things, whether or not it's the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. So you have to figure it out, but get that. Anyways, lots of stuff going on last weekend that we'll talk about later with Jacob Saliga. Mason Byers, our Hype on My Girls Flag football writer, is going to join me here in just a second to talk about his all-conference first and second team rankings for 4A through 6A. Talking about some of the stuff that's going on this weekend. Big high school basketball game tonight. Perry taking on Sunny Slope in Phoenix. That one should be pretty exciting. The Suns are not doing great. 10th in the Western Conference. I didn't think I'd be saying that a couple weeks ago. I'm curious about this Jimmy Butler stuff that I've been hearing for the last week. I think it would be absolutely phenomenal to have a legit small forward on our roster because I feel like the last time the Suns had a small forward on their roster was Mikal Bridges, and that worked out really well. And I think that you got a great guy in Tyus Jones. Just get rid of Bradley Beal and get Butler. But then again, I don't think the Heat are going to want to take on whatever this is Beal's absurd contract that it's just absolutely ridiculous. Some of the stuff going on tomorrow, ASU basketball taking on number 9 Florida in Atlanta. We'll talk more about that one towards the end of the show. The Army Navy games tomorrow, Heisman trophies tomorrow. And then the Cardinals might try to win a game on Sunday. You never know what they're going to do. They'll do something. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my guy, Mason Byers. Mason, my man, how's it going, brother?
Good, good. I love the sign on your door back there.
Isn't it great, dude? This
It's good
I
quality.
was like I was like, you know what? I gotta add like some like fun art, and I did that in 30 seconds, and thought it deserved some recognition. So
There you go.
put that up there. I'm glad you can see it. I feel like it's a little dark over here. Maybe it's just on my screen, but and I got the Christmas tree. So we're rocking, man.
Very
We're all
festive.
good. You just finished up. You just when you graduate, have you graduated already, or I know you're
Now I'm
done.
done with classes, so I just wrapped up like a week ago. I'm done with
How
ASU.
did,
It's been a fun
how does
ride.
that feel?
It's I definitely enjoyed my time at Cronkite. Like definitely a lot of experiences, but I think towards the end you kind of just want to be like free from all the classes and just
Yeah.
focus solely on your work. So yeah,
Oh,
but
trust me, I get it.
yeah.
Um, so did you what was your freshman year COVID year,
So
or
my
was
so
it the
I
year after?
graduated high school in 2020.
Okay.
So I had my end of my high school was COVID, and then I started at Chandler Gilbert Community College, so that was all Zoom. And even when I came to ASU as a transfer, there was still a lot of like, there was a couple of Zoom classes there too. So it was a
Okay.
weird time.
Oh, so you didn't start at ASU?
No, 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 I did not start at ASU.
Where did you start?
Chandler Gilbert Community College.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay.
it was
Yeah.
it's
That's
like
dope.
I've lived in like the East Valley my whole life, so I just decided to do that
I did
for
too.
first
Where
couple semesters.
what's your crossroads?
I've lived on Williamsville my whole life, but I went to
Oh,
Campo
okay.
Verde, so no.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like 5 to 10 minutes from Campo Verde. I'm on Gilbert Nocateo. So I'm like right by the new ACP.
Okay, okay.
So pretty close, pretty close. Um, all right, let's talk about the girls flag football season, end of the year award stuff before we dive into the awards and the recognition and all that. Thoughts on the playoffs, thoughts on the end of the season. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, last season obviously was really good, obviously being the inaugural season, but this season was way better in my opinion, just because we had another conference. We had some conference realignment with some schools going up to 6A, some going to 5A, a lot of them dropping to 4A because they needed to fill that conference up with some talented teams. Um, there's a lot of teams this year that had a first year program. I mean, St. Mary's, they're a first year program in the 4A. They went undefeated this year. They won the 4A championship. So that was pretty cool because I didn't really know a lot about their program. I know they had a club team before, and that's a lot of what these other teams have. They used to have club
Hmm.
teams, and then
Yeah,
once they get enough players and they can actually build their roster up, they can compete at the AIA level. So that was fun. The playoffs were amazing. There's a lot of great games in the playoffs. Specifically, 5A had some really good games. That Campo Verde Canyon View rematch in the semifinals was really good. And then my personal favorite game of the year was the 6A championship game. I mean, literally down to the last. It was the last
yeah.
play of the game. It came down to. It was awesome.
I was keeping up with those updates on Twitter. It seemed like it was pretty exciting. Let's talk about the winners of that 6A state championship game. Who's also your 6A coach of the year, Matt Stone, Huskies, undefeated. If I'm not wrong, right? What
Yeah.
what what did you just see from Hamilton all season that kind of propelled them to just keep going every week?
Just pure dominance, honestly. Like they have put together the most dominant season up to this point. I know the sport's very young, but it's going to be hard to
Yeah.
replicate that for a very long time. The cool thing about them is like obviously they have the talent, but when you just go and watch them, none of the players have an ego. When they're beating teams by 30, they're not talking trash or anything. Like it's a very well-oiled machine there. Matt Stone uh, runs a great program. They have he's a couple coaches on there. Coach Mike, their defensive coordinator, he actually just got hired to be the Arizona Christian University flag football
Oh,
coach. So they just
nice.
got a lot of great coaches over there. Um, and honestly, the coolest thing was Marley Phillips. She was my first team 6A quarterback, and the thing she was doing as a freshman was just pretty insane. Like, I can't wait to see her progression through her 4 years because, um, the way she was poised for a freshman, the connection between her and Samaya was instant. It's going to be pretty cool to see because Samaya will be a senior next year, so I think they're going to try to run it back. So it's
Could
cool.
see a back-to-back from the Hamilton Huskies. All right,
Yeah.
let's dive into these girls flag football teams. Let's start with the 4A conference. Kind of just talk to me about your player of the year, and your first and second team, as well as your coach of the year too.
Yeah. So um, the 4A player of the year, definitely Gwen Carter. Um, it was really between her and her teammate Ariana Manning. Ariana Manning, also a fantastic player. She had over 30 sacks on the year, so she was just a pretty big defensive presence. But Gwen Carter, I had to pick someone from St. Mary's just because I thought their whole story was awesome, and then Gwen Carter fit that mold perfectly. I mean, she had 600 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, and then also had 600 receiving yards, 7 rushing touchdowns to go along with 7 picks. So, talking about a do-it-all player, she's basically that for St. Mary's. There's pretty much nothing she doesn't do for this team. Um, and then going to a couple of other players, Jordan Flores, the first team quarterback from Mesquite, definition of dual threat. She's got a great arm, but also she kind of is Mesquite's running back in a sense where she's going to pick up a lot of those yards on the ground. Same with Bianca Gomez from Coco Nino. Had to show the north up north some love. They have a
Yeah,
couple great
totally.
football teams. Uh, and then yeah, the honestly one of the most fun players I got to watch this year was Kinsley McCarty for Eastmark. She's a sophomore, I believe, receiver. Yes, but she again just a player who pretty much does it all on the offensive end. When I saw her, she was getting punt returns. She was on jet sweep. She was in the backfield playing running back. She was the number one receiver. And that kind of goes to show like the kind of versatility that a lot of these girls have, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um, Even like Charlize Brown, excuse me, for Mesquite. She played kind of like a linebacker rushing role for them. Pretty much could either blitz or drop in coverage, which is something pretty impressive in my opinion. Um, and then I have to talk about Madeline Falls for Benjamin Franklin. I only got to see one Benjamin Franklin game this year, but the one game I saw, she was cooking everybody. She's a pretty talented receiver. Just you can just tell she's been playing the game for a while because her IQ is off the charts. I mean, it's kind of like she kind of plays like a Travis Kelsey role where the other team's in zone, she's gonna find that gap in between the zones, and
yeah.
she's gonna get 10 catches probably that game. So yeah, definitely a lot of talented 4A people. Honestly, it was such a fun year for the 4A because I kind of it's when I coming into the season, I thought Eastmark was gonna run away with it, but they kind of had a younger team mixed with some injuries, and the 4A conference was just wide open. That's why you kind of saw a team like St. Mary's kind of come out with it. Coco Nino had a great year. That's why I have a couple of their players again, like Kern. She was basically the leading receiver um, for Bianca. And then the one person I need to talk about before we go to 5A is uh, Brianna Brown for Dyser High School. Um, she finished top 5 in receiving yards out of the entire state. Um, Over 15 touchdowns. Like, so I just had to show love to her because um, pretty much probably the most dominant receiver in 4A this year.
Totally. And talking about your head coach of the year, Sergio Ramirez over there at Mountain Point. What was it about his team and the Mountain Point Pride that led you to make that selection?
Yeah, I think it's just the culture he's built over there. I mean, this is a team who a lot of people, maybe even myself, maybe slept on a little bit coming into the year. I can definitely admit I was wrong. I had them ninth in my preseason rankings, and they had a fantastic year. And the thing I like about them the most is they don't have a lot of upperclassmen. A lot of their starters are juniors or sophomores, like their quarterback Maya Moreno, and he's actually a coach in 5A. I kind of for my coaches, I just did 3 coaches of the year. Um, so he's a 5A coach, but their only loss came in the 5A championship game against Canyon View. And pretty much the entire year they were taking care of business, and even that game against Canyon View, it could have really went the other way. So I had to show love to Coach Ramirez because I really like the program he's built over there, and it's a program that's definitely going to be a long lasting one. And I think they might be my favorites coming into next year.
Oh, there you go. Talking about Canyon View, your 5A coach of the year, head coach Michael Beal, and your quarterback of the year, or I should say player of the year in 5A, Caitlin Jewell. Talk to me about her performance this season and the first and second teams for 5A.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can Coach Beal and Kaylin. They both. I mean, I talked to them after a couple games, but I talked to them a lot after the Campo Verde game. And regular season, it was the Cardinals game of the week, and you could just tell this team had a different energy to them. I mean, last year they were definitely a favorite to probably go out and win the 5A championship. They fell 1 point short. It was a back and forth game between them and Campo last year in the championship game, and Coach Beal really just like you could tell that he didn't call it a revenge game. He just said, we didn't take care of business last year, and this year is exactly what he did. And same with Caitlin. I mean, Caitlin is. I said it in my article. I think she's going to go down as even. I know it's only the second year, but I think when we're 10 years into this, I think we're going to look back at Caitlin's legacy that she left, and I think it's going to be pretty inspiring because she came in and she was one of the people that kind of put Arizona flag football on the map because of how talented she is. She's super efficient with the ball. She's got her IQ is off the charts. I mean, she's been playing flag football for a very long time, from what she told me and some other people in an interview. But the whole Canyon View team, I actually have quite a few of them just because they were so talented. Like her main receiver, Mackenzie Pope. Mackenzie Pope had a couple punt return touchdowns this year, which you personally don't see a lot, and I personally don't
No.
see a lot in flag football. So she had a couple of them this year, and she had 3 touchdowns in the championship game. She had 3 touchdowns on that Cardinals game of the week. She was just absolutely killing it this year. Also, Ari Richardson, she was on the second team, but again, kind of that wide receiver 2 for Canyon View. Just really good. Kaylani Tucker, first team DB. She was pretty much their ball hawk, their corner 1. And then someone who I feel like doesn't get enough respect. She was on my second team, Macy Bassett. She is a kind of like that Gwen Carter for Canyon View. She pretty much does everything. She's their snapper on offense, so she kind of gets some of those chunk plays in between. But on defense, she's blitzing, she's dropping back into coverage. She's that vocal leader. I mean, she's pretty much doing it all. So
Yeah.
how to show love to the Canyon View girls. Someone I also want to talk about is Joanna Simpson for Nogales. Running back is one of the hardest positions in flag football, just because obviously when you get the ball right there, you don't have blockers really. So the linebackers and rushers are going to be right there for you. But Joanna Simpson had over 1,000 yards rushing, which I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she was the only non-quarterback to have 1,000 yards rushing on the year. So definitely the best running back this year, in my opinion, out of all of the conferences. Got to show love to Kayla Tacker. Saw her a couple games for Casa Grande. She won. She won. She was on my first team this year. She's only a sophomore, but even last year as a freshman, she was a ball hawk. She had over 10 interceptions. She's super tall, super athletic. I could even put her. If I wanted to, I could have put her at receiver too, because she had over 1,000 yards receiving this year. So another kind of dual threat. And then I talked about just a little bit ago, Maya Moreno, Mountain Point quarterback. Had to show love to her. She was absolutely phenomenal this year. She is only going to get better. She has one heck of an arm, but her legs also. She is one of the better dual threat quarterbacks, if not the best one in the state right now. She absolutely was amazing. Storm. Then I have to talk about the 2 rushers on first team. Storm Ryan, which is also just an awesome name in general, but
That is a great name.
and then Larissa Gutierrez. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that. They were, I think they had over. I know Storm Ryan had 25 plus sacks, and then Larissa had 30 plus. So just two dominant rushers. Had to show love to them, and then had to show love to the Campo Verde girls as well. Coach Koger and that team always putting together some great talent. Maddie Koger, um, she just graduated. She was a senior this year. We know what she's going to bring. She's going to bring 2,000 receiving yards every season. Um, kind of what I said about Caitlin. Maddie is going to be one of those trendsetters for flag football, and I think if a girl kind of coming into the sport, if you want to look at a couple players, I think you look at Caitlin and Maddie and kind of what they've done and
Yeah.
kind of build off that. Again, and a couple more. Ella Mutters, second team receiver. She was a freshman, almost had 1,000 yards receiving. Pretty much their slot receiver there at Campo. She was fantastic. And then Rihanna Guriani kind of played a running back receiving role, kind of put her at running back for the second team. And yeah, just a lot of great talent in 5A. This is definitely, personally, this is my favorite conference to watch. Just a lot of competition going on this year.
Totally. Mason Byers, our girls flag football expert over here at Hypermark, talking about the 4A through 6A all conference first and second team mentions. By the way, presented by Whataburger, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's a pretty cool thing to add on to it. But talking about the 6A first team and second team mentions, and then our player of the year, Malaysia Roebuck over there in Marana.
Yeah. Kind of talked about it. 6A coach of the year, Matt Stone. So just go jump to the player of the year. There's something about those Roebucks, man, at Marana. They got some
Pretty
talent
good
there.
hands.
Yeah, they got some pretty good hands. Malaysia, I kind of talked about it a couple times this year. I said, the classic 50-50 ball, even between
Yeah.
the cornerback and receiver. When it's Malaysia, it's not even. She's going to win that ball almost every single time, whether she's playing receiver or whether she's playing safety. So I had to show her love. Obviously, could have gave it to maybe a couple of those Hamilton girls, but um, just watching Malaysia this year, I just had to show her some recognition because I feel like not a lot of people were kind of talking about her this year, which is kind of crazy considering how dominant she really is.
Mhm.
So shout out to her. Then you kind of just look at the 6A team, just talent across the board. We kind of talked about Marley and Samaya, the dominant duo. Samaya could go again, kind of with the Caitlin and Maddie. She's going to go down as one of the better AIA players of all time. Lucy Lamoureux, um, first team running back. She played receiver and running back. Decided to give her the running back nod. Um, this is her first year playing flag football, and you would not have guessed it the way she was dominating. So it was pretty cool to see. Claire McMahon over at Basha, underclassman, sophomore, again, one of the more dominant receivers. For a really good Basha team. Basha was really good this year. I feel like not a lot of people talked about them. They were undefeated up until they played Hamilton. And I think they only lost one or two more games the rest of the season. So
Hmm.
um, shout out to Basha for a great year. And then I'll go to my second team offense real quick. Lacey Nemchek over at Castile had to throw someone in Castile on the team, and no better person than Lacey. She's going to be one of the better quarterbacks next year. I can guarantee that. I think she's already top 10, top 7. She's going to be top 3 next year. I think that's not even a question. She's phenomenal. She's got mobility, but she doesn't always use it to pick up yards. She just uses it to extend the play, which I really like. Um, Macy Kearns over at Higley. I called her third and Macy this year because it feels like every time I watched her, it was third down. Uh, she was the go-to target, so called her third and Macy. Uh, we have a couple Millennium girls on these teams. Haley Buis, just one of the more dominant receivers over at Millennium. For Brianna Saunders, who I'll talk about in a second. Um, Emma Fishbeck, another Mountain View girl. Mountain View again, just always having some great talent over there. Sarah Bruto, running back. Again, her and Lucy were pretty much identical in terms of stat wise, so I had to show her some love as well. And then going to the defensive side, Cadence McCandless, um, very, very similar to a Macy Bassett in terms of, yeah, maybe she doesn't have 15 interceptions and 20 sacks, but she kind of does everything. She led the team in interceptions, flag poles for Red Mountain, a really good Red Mountain team. Had to show some love to Red Mountain, especially Coach Madison, one of the more friendlier guys I've met this year. So shout out to you, Coach Madison. Cadence pretty much plays like a Luke Kuechly role. She's that leader on
Mm.
defense. She's that Mike linebacker every time. So had to show her love. Nami Singer, actually Malaysia's teammate, probably one of the better, if not the best pass rusher this year. I think she led the league, or excuse me, led every conference in sacks this year. Um, and then Brianna Saunders. It's funny about her. I could have put her in a couple different areas. I could have put her at quarterback. I decided to do DB because I wanted to have some have a Lacey in there. Brianna led the year in passing yards. She had 45 passing touchdowns, 1,000 rushing yards, but then she also had 19 interceptions. So, so she could either be an offensive first team or defensive first team. I elected defensive first team. Kalen Saunders, Mia Adams, both ball hawks over there at Highland and Perry. Kylie Riggs, Ava Klein, again, had to show love to both Highland and Red Mountain, just two great programs. Cameron Mayu, again, great quarterback, elected to put her at DB. Um, yeah, and then had to show love to Gilbert, to Dana, because they just had a great season. So Dana was a great DB. And then Valone over at Corona del Sol also had about 10 interceptions this year. So that rounded out my 6A list.
Boom. There you go. And like that, I should say the first year at 4A, the second year of the Arizona High School girls flag football season comes to a close. Mason, when you look back at all the games you went to this year, all the moments, all the plays, all the everything, what is the one play or the one moment from this season that sticks out to you?
I think the one moment that sticks out to me the most, it has to be the final play of the year. Um,
Mm.
Red Mountain getting up to snap. It was 3 seconds left on that 3 yard line. I just remember this so vividly. I was recording with my phone, but I was watching with my eyes, so I knew the phone quality wasn't as great. So I was just in disbelief. But Red Mountain was putting together a game-winning drive. If they scored a touchdown, they were going to win, but they were down 4, so they couldn't send it to OT. Three yards on the line. Corey Roberts did a little like dump pass to Mellish on the left side, and then Demi Woods for Hamilton. I shout out to her. She didn't make my list, but Demi Woods, you're also a very talented player, so shout out to you over that Hamilton. She rushed over there like her life depended on it. Got the flagpole. I think both sides were a little confused if the game was over. Clock hit 0. I see Coach Mike, again, now the new ACU flag football head coach, throw his hat in the air. Hamilton girls storming the field. And they completed the perfect season. And Matt Stone and Samaya fell short last year, but they ended up getting it done this year. So I think that was the definitely the most memorable was the last play of the year.
There you go. Mason Byers, Hypermark, girls flag football writer. I know you're gonna do some stuff with ASU covering their girls flag football team. And I think you're also gonna do a little basketball coverage too, right?
Yeah, definitely love basketball. So I'll be doing for now I'll be doing a boys game of the week and a girls game of the week until
There you
ASU
go.
flag starts playing some games. But yeah, we're killing it over here at Hypermarket. So endless amount of content.
There you go. Great time. Great time. If you're not following Hypermark on Instagram or Twitter or X or what else are we on? Go to our website, hypermark.com.
Yeah,
Lots of great stuff there. Mason, always appreciate you jumping on here and definitely catch up with you down the road.
awesome. Thank you, Adam. Have a great rest of your show.
Later. You too. I mean, not you too. Oh, I hate when I do that. That is the worst thing ever. All right. Appreciate Mason jumping on and talking some girls flag football. Sounds like a great year. I didn't keep up with it as much as I probably should have or wanted to, just because with everything going on. But talk about some of the state championships now. These are talking about the high school football state championships. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch any of the games because NFHS is the worst thing on the planet. The fact that I got to pay however much it is I got to pay to watch a high school football game, the stream is terrible. But got to shout out all of our champions from last weekend: 4A Micah Mountain, 5A Desert Edge, 6A Centennial, and of course the back-to-back Open Division champions, the Liberty Lions, who seem to just kill it all game long in that Open Division game. So super happy for head coach Colin Thomas. And what he's done with this program, and what collectively as a group this Liberty team was able to do, putting together another championship season. So, and obviously talking about 6A Centennial, I've talked about it time and time again. The great story with Richard Taylor and what that Centennial team was able to accomplish this season after their rough start. You could even talk about Desert Edge, the adversity they faced this season. You got to remember, we were only in April and May when Mark and Marcus Carter left Desert Edge, and now you've got all these questions like, oh, are some of these players going to stay? Are they going to leave? Pretty much all of them ended up staying, and it ended up working out in the long run. Coach MacArthur getting it done with the Scorpions, getting the championship, and then Micah Mountain. I mean, this was a beast in the 4A conference that was eventually just going to come out and win a championship. I don't think Micah Mountain's been around for a very long time. I think 3 or 4 years, as Jacob Sliga is pointing to me here as he's waiting. And we're going to get to him in a second. But and then obviously the other championship from last weekend, the one I was at, Arizona State getting a big 45-19 win over Iowa State, the Big 12 championship. ASU clinching a bye in the college football playoff. I mean, you could not have written this story more perfectly for Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State Sun Devils, from a team that had back-to-back 3-win seasons, 3-9 in Kenny Dillingham's first year last year, to an 11-2 season with a Big 12 championship after being picked to finish last in the Big 12. I mean, it doesn't get much like movie like or story like it did this season. Just truly incredible, Kenny Dillingham and his team. And I'm going to bring on right now the one and only Jacob Sliga, our Hypermart college football writer, who looks like he's in the background of AT&T Stadium. You gotta love it. Gotta love it. I mean, Jacob, like before we even get into talking about other stuff, just like how just awesome was it to be in that stadium, just to be in that moment and see it happen?
It was an amazing moment. I will never do that to my sleep schedule ever again.
That was gonna be my next question: is are you good?
To the physical toll it took on my body, no, never again. But to just be in that stadium for that experience, I mean, that was a 10 out of 10 experience. Just being in that building, seeing Arizona State win that championship, being
Yeah.
on the flight from Sky Harbor at 5 a.m, full of Sun Devil fans, being on the flight at 10 o'clock at night from Dallas home, full of Sun Devil fans, just all day long, seeing the level of support. It was amazing. And as to your second question, whenever my sleep schedule gets messed up like that, whenever I go through long stretches, I can't sleep. I get sick. I get a cold, get a really bad one.
Oh.
I'm just now like getting back to normal. Still a little congested, but yeah, physical toll 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. But experience wise, that was a 10 out of 10 experience being in that stadium.
Although your sleep schedule got a little messed up, you did win a state championship. So
Some slight.
how much did that make up for the lack of sleep?
I mean, that experience, that's an experience I always take with me, mostly because just how much of an impact I know it has on those kids and as on the other people in the program who've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Henry, this year was his 9th year. He came in, his first season was the season after D won the 2015 title. So he was there in the 2015 season, pardon me. So he was there right after they had won that championship. So this is his first experience with DE getting a championship. He was part of that
Yeah.
2019 loss to Mesquite and Ty Thompson. 2023, obviously, we know what happened against Higley. For people like him, Coach GT, Coach Parr, everybody who has been there through the trenches, Steve Ortiz, all those coaches who have been there, seen what the program is built into, see what it's become. As much as I'm excited for myself, and as much as happy I am, I'm just happy for them, and I'm happy for all those players who, let's face it, back in April when everything happened with the Carter brothers and the chaos of whether or not we would be eligible for postseason, whether we'd be on
Yeah.
probation, who would be the new head coach, all this, that, and the other. These kids did not let the outside noise get to them. They didn't let it get to them. They battled through, and they won a state championship in the process. And so, just this, as happy as I am to say that I I want a state championship. Like, to me, like, I'm more happy and proud for everybody else involved than I am for myself.
Totally. You threw out a random name, and it's gonna get me off topic if I don't bring it up. Or I mean, I'm not gonna be able to keep going if I don't bring it up. Ty Thompson, who transferred from Oregon last year to Tulane,
And is in the portal.
And is he back in the portal?
So listen to this. So when Darren Mensa, the current, who was the Tulane quarterback all year long,
right,
who was the number 1 ranked player in the portal, who committed to Duke, not long after he entered the portal, Pete Thamel of ESPN came out and said, yeah, Ty Thompson put his name and entered the portal, but is going to start the bowl game for Tulane and is sort of doing it as a way to gauge like his marketability, his interest, to where, there could be a Power 5 team who may see how he plays in a bowl game. Because if I'm not mistaken, Tulane's going up against Florida. So that's SEC competition. If I'm not mistaken, that's a big opponent. That's a quality opponent to go up against and show like, hey, if you could do that to an SEC defense, you could play at the Power 4 level as a starting quarterback. And so, Ty Thompson.
He would have 2 years of eligibility, a redshirt year at Oregon, and
he had
then
the red shirt. Freshman. Yeah, he would have 2 years of eligibility. So
crazy.
So if he does well in that bowl game for Tulane, obviously the option of coming back to Tulane is still on the table. Tulane could give him a good NIL deal. They could just say like, hey, you killed in the bowl game, you're our starter going forward. Like, he's going to have a lot of options and a lot of flexibility. And so, I know one of the big topics we'll be talking about between you and I is just all the Arizona kids in the portal. That's a big one to keep an eye on. And we're going to know pretty soon just how favorable his market is in the portal, because if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the first bowl games on the schedule. I think that's either Tuesday or Wednesday, like the 4th or 5th bowl game of the bowl season. So we're going to know rather quickly.
It's going to be exciting, as is the rest of the offseason with the portal and everything like that. But going back to the Big 12 Championship game last Saturday, looking back at that game, just the performance from ASU, that dominant third quarter, 2 turnovers, 3 touchdowns. What stood out to you the most from ASU's play last weekend?
Well, I think what stood out to me, I mean, we got to start with a guy who should be in New York City right now, but isn't. Cam Scadaboo was a man amongst boys out there on Saturday. I mean, we say it all the time, he's got some grown man running ability. He ran like a grown man amongst boys against that Iowa State defense. I mean, his contact balance. That's the number one thing. Like you, Chris Cartman of Sun Devil Source, Hode Rubino of Devil's Digest, myself. They talk. Joe Tessitore and them on the broadcast brought it up. We've heard it all year long. That phrase, contact balance, with Cam Scadaboo. It's the fact that this guy can keep getting hit and getting hit and getting hit, and he contorts himself into a way of staying up and not going down. It's honestly amazing to see. What was it? There was 3 separate runs in the first half alone where it looked like he got straight up popped by a backer or a safety coming down to hit him, and he kept his balance. And
that first run of the game, the first play of the game,
17-yard run. And then what about that run in the second quarter, that 53-yard run that really got the Sun Devils offense rolling? I mean, Cam Scatterbo on the day, 170 rushing yards, 38 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, how is this guy not in New York for the Heisman ceremony
Yeah.
tomorrow? I mean, listen, I think there's a faction of the Sun Devil fan base that says that he should win the Heisman Trophy. And I'm not one to say whether or not a player should or shouldn't win the Heisman Trophy, but I definitely think he should have been invited to New York. I mean, let's face it, if Cam Scatterbo doesn't have the season he has, we're not talking about Arizona State getting a bye in the college
Exactly.
football playoff, much less
Exactly.
making it, much less getting to Arlington.
Yeah.
Hell, we don't even know if this team may have even reached 6, 7 wins. And so Cam Scatterbo being arguably the most valuable player in the country this year, I mean, his performance, it showed. And just how I think the most telling thing from the game that I haven't heard much people talk about, I don't know what, we didn't even talk about it amongst you and I just chopping it up on Saturday. I don't know what you thought on the field, but from my point of view, the way Iowa State was able to effectively move that ball down the field all throughout the first quarter with ease, the rollout play actions they were designing with Rocco Beck, just kind of getting the defense off balance, forcing a
Yeah.
backer to be like, crap, do I drop back and try to play the tight end coming across or the running back coming into the flat, or do I chase after Beck and just throwing the defense off? I initially said, I was talking to some of the people in the press box. I went, oh, crap, this does not look good for the Sun Devils. The defense looks unbalanced, uneven, isn't playing the right game. And then, as we've seen all year long, this coaching staff just making adjustments.
Yeah.
The adjustments that defensive coaching staff, headlined by Brian Ward, for them to make the adjustments they made going in from at the end of the first quarter into the second quarter, I think it won them the game. As much as Scatterbo's performance offensively
Yeah.
did, they shut down Iowa State. Iowa State in the first quarter moved the ball with ease. That drive going into the second quarter, Iowa State was deep into the red zone, and they got held to the field goal. And sure enough, that was the last points they got until about garbage time in the fourth quarter.
Something switched for ASU right before the end of the first half, where their defensive line hadn't really been very effective all day, and then all of a sudden Iowa State was just getting pressured every about 2 seconds into the play. Like it seemed like something just kind of clicked, and it's something that I kind of attribute more to a click, and obviously the coaching, obviously adjustments is all that, but it's just like somebody flipped a switch and something happened, and all of a sudden Rocco Becht is getting pressured, he's getting hit hard. Iowa State, he's barely got any time in the pocket, and Arizona State is like taking advantage of it, and Javen Robinson is all of a sudden turning it on, because Javen Robinson had a really rough start to the game, and then all of a sudden the defensive line, it was kind of like a chain reaction where the defensive line figured out what they were doing, and then everybody else behind them in the secondary figured out what they were doing. So I don't really know what to attest that to, and you could attest it to adjustments, but it was just almost like at a point in the game, Iowa State kind of crashed and ASU completely took advantage of it.
Well, I think for me, like the big thing I think that kind of helped flip that switch defensively was, you talk about the defensive line. I just want to highlight how solid that linebacker play was, especially in that second half. I mean, shout out to Caleb McCullough, a guy who, we have talked about glowingly this year, waited his turn, went through the transition from Herm to Kenny, and just did all of his things. And as you saw earlier in the year, didn't have a big role, but since that Utah game and onwards, he has just played a bigger and bigger role in his defense. I mean, his 2 tackles for loss were huge huge. Iowa State was getting their balance in the offense, was throwing people off early, because Iowa State is a primarily pass first team. They want to dink and dunk it down the field.
And they shut Noel down. I mean, I don't think Noel really had an explosive play the entire game.
Yeah, I have the stat sheet up in front of us. I mean, he had a couple of catches, but they were in garbage time. He had that long touchdown catch, against a backup safety and Kyan McDonald, which we'll get to why Kyan McDonald was even in the game to begin with. He did the majority of his damage on that last drive. He finished with was it 64 receiving yards. He had
Yeah.
over 40 of those on that final drive where the game is out of reach and you're already down almost 30. You're down 32 points. Like ASU shut down Jalen Noel. They let Jaden Higgins go off. But what did I say on the preview last week? And what did I write in the Hypermart preview? You can live the ASU defense. You can live with letting one cook and letting the other get shut down, because that's what Kansas' secondary did with 2 NFL corners and Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson. That's what Texas Tech defense did. And guess what? Those were the only 2 Iowa State losses entering this game. The Sun Devils lived up to that formula and shut down the passing game of Rocco Beck in Iowa State by taking one of them out of the game.
No doubt. And let's talk about that reason why Ken McDonald was in that game to begin with. Shamari Simmons laid it on Rocco Beck in what was 100% a clean hit. Got called for targeting, ejected. He's ruled out for the first half of the Peach Bowl. However, ASU appealing that, although some of the stuff, kind of, it's been taking some time. It's kind of, probably safe to assume that ASU will not get that approved. That'll have a big effect on the Sun Devils in the Peach Bowl. What is kind of your viewpoint on that? Can ASU move some guys around, or you put a lot of trust in a freshman really early on?
Well, for me, I mean, I went off on Twitter. I went off on Twitter when that play happened, and we talked about it in our post-game stand-up. We talked about it together as well, and everybody in the press box seemed to be in agreement. At a certain point, I don't know what you want a defender to do. If a quarterback or an offensive player puts their helmet down right to brace for contact, puts their helmet to their chest, puts their face mask down, and you already have a defensive player lunging to make a hit, I don't know what you expect them to do at that point. Because at a certain point, like, we're talking about how we want to take helmet hits out of the game. We want to take helmet to helmet, head to head hits out of the game. But yet, when you have a player who is aiming for the chest, who is going to the chest, an area where college refs and the NCAA is trying to make it clear, like, hey, we want you to hit the chest. We want you to go neck down. Keep it clean in there. Knees up, but above the knees from the neck down. You have a guy doing that. You have a guy who's literally making contact with the chest. But because a quarterback braces for the impact, literally right before the guy's supposed to make contact, you eject him for targeting when it wasn't even this doesn't even fall within the spirit of the rule. And that was the excuse that was made during the the Kansas game earlier on in the year.
It was there were 2 instances we were talking about. We were talking about the Clayton Smith targeting, which was clearly a clear and obvious targeting. Then there was the Keyshawn Elliott touchdown targeting, where he basically collided with the Kansas State wide receiver. Like, they both
collided at the same time.
It was a very defensive play, and Keyshawn Elliott got called for targeting. So,
I think what was frustrating about it too is that you have the white hat looking at it, and you have the back judge looking at the helmet. You have them looking at the contact, and there was no flag thrown by either of them, staring them down. Go back and watch the replay, people. You have both. I honestly staring at it, and neither of them called it. And what's crazy about it is they took 2 minutes into the TV timeout, because that was the last play of the quarter, to even initiate the booth review. So that tells me that they weren't even 100% certain that it was a gosh darn targeting. Like, what are we doing? Like, genuinely.
I honestly think, and I honestly feel this way, and I think they threw that flag just because of how big of a hit it was, not because
100%.
of the head-to-head contact or anything. They saw some dude come at another dude really hard and threw the flag, which for something like that is completely unjustified and absolutely makes 0 sense. And so I'm right with you, where it's just ridiculous.
To me, that's a high school call. That's what it felt like, because I've seen it.
I don't even think we'd have refs in high now. There are some refs in this state that would call it that way. I 100% think that there are some refs in high school that would never have made a call like that.
Adam, I can personally attest at least 2 Desert Edge games this season alone where You see how fast and violent we play to the ball. We play hard. We play
Right.
physical. We are arguably the fastest team in the state. We hit hard. There's been 2 instances this year where because we hit hard and we hit fast, it looks worse than what it actually is when you slow it down on film and you do everything like that, where we've gotten a flag call just because of the sheer violence, the sound that the pads are making when they collide, what it looks like, which is understandable. I think I would be less upset. And Kurt, I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like I would be less upset about the targeting if it was initially called on the field. If the refs on the field had called it and it wasn't booth initiated 2 minutes after the hit. If they would have called that on the field, like the white hat staring it down or the back judge, like, hey, it looked like helmet to helmet. Let's just review this to make sure. And they confirmed it. I would be less upset because at least it would make sense on the field. But the fact that all the officials on the field staring at the QB getting laid out, getting knocked out, and still none of them threw the flag. And it took a booth review to initiate targeting.
Who even has the authority to like make the call that, oh, this was targeting? You need to say that it was targeting, because now we're talking about a situation where the refs don't even believe it's targeting, but the booth says it's targeting.
So the replay official buzzes down. Obviously, that goes. But what then happens is that whoever the white hat is, they are communicating with the replay official, and they are communicating with outside officiating. And they're basically just discussing. They're like, "Hey, does this meet the guideline for targeting? Hey, from this angle, this is what it appears as helmet." So even if the white hat doesn't throw the flag and call it, they still may be compelled after seeing it and being like, hey, we have to call this flag, or hey, this is what it looks like. Hey, so that's kind of what goes down officiating. It's like that across every conference. It's like that in the pros, except in the pros, there's a little bit more, not just the replay official. You got to go to New York when you're in the pros, but like, yeah, this to me, I think the Big 12, like, especially because of just the impact of this. I'm not saying that you need to completely exonerate them strictly off of that, but you really need to look at the spirit of the rule and in terms of what was the intent. Because I think
that was what I was just about to ask you. Like, should there be different, I guess, levels of a targeting penalty? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so, because I think I understand it's similar to the Keyshawn Elliott hit earlier in the year and similar to this now. I think there's levels to targeting. I think there should be two levels of targeting. I think it should be sort of like treated like how the flagrant foul rule is treated in basketball.
Very true.
Where it should be like this, or even like if you want to make it a 15-yard penalty matter, treat it like in a sportsman, like where the first one is 15 yards. If you get a second one, you're ejected. And in terms of that, it should be
unless it's like
unless it's egregious. And so that's where I think levels should come in. So if it's a level 1 baseline targeting, it should be automatic. It should be 15 yards, automatic first down. Because like in this case, I would understand that. Like, yes, it technically meets the rule. The QB puts his helmet down right as the defender is trying to make contact. He can't avoid it. He can't pull up at that point. By the spirit of the rule, you have to put targeting. But is that targeting the same as Clayton Smith's, for example? Or, I mean, shoot, we've seen plays where you even see that or think about in the pros. Think about that hit the Texans linebacker had on Trevor Lawrence. In college, that's a targeting.
Yeah.
That would be, in my opinion, you look at that should be the level 2 targeting, where it is the same automatic first down, 15-yard penalty with an ejection. I think if you have levels to it, I think that would help quell a lot of the dissent that has come with this rule. Because I understand why we have the targeting rule. I'm not disagreeing with the targeting rule. I think we need to protect the players. I think we need to get the helmet hit out of the game. I think we need to protect these people's heads. But at the same time, intent is important. And if you could show there was an intent, like you should be.
Totally. Looking ahead to ASU's game on New Year's Day, they'll play in the Peach Bowl against the winners of excuse me, against the winners of either Texas or Clemson. You had mentioned before that you feel that Texas is probably the best matchup ASU can get in the college football playoff. How would they face up against either the Longhorns or the Tigers?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, if it's Clemson, I'm partying all the way to Dallas for the semifinal against either Oregon or Ohio State. I don't see a world where Clemson beats Arizona State. I'll just put that out there right now.
There you go.
But when it comes to Texas, the reason why I'm so bullish on Texas being a winnable game, I think there's two key reasons about it. First things first, Sark has kind of proven that he's just going to ride or die with Quinn Ewers. And I think in that matchup, I think it's safe to say that the Sun Devils had the quarterback advantage in that game between how ineffective Quinn Ewers has been against good competition this year, and even against some teams who are not at Texas level, such as Kentucky, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. I think Sam Levitt, especially with how he's played since the start of November, I think the Sun Devils had the QB advantage in this matchup. Then I think, secondly, the Sun Devils would have the best player on the field in Cam Scadaboo. And I think a stat that should cause some concern if you're a Texas fan, Texas, by the numbers, it looks like they have a top 20 rushing defense in the country. But listen to this, Adam. Texas is 112th in the country in rushing yards allowed in the second half of games. And in the second half of games, they are averaging almost 5 yards per carry.
Huh.
If you're in a situation where it is a close game at halftime or Arizona State's in the lead, those numbers kind of scream to me, hey, step on the neck time with Cam Scadaboo. It really does. And so I think those
twist the knife.
And I think those two things play hand in hand into what the Sun Devils can be successful with in that matchup. And plus, I think Texas has proven to be very vulnerable with a mobile quarterback. I mean, we were watching it in the press box together, that Georgia-Texas game on Saturday. When Gunnar Stockton came in and started using his legs, Texas's defense almost looked shell-shocked. And Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback, he killed them on the ground in that matchup.
Yeah.
Texas, for a team that has all the speed and has all the five-star talent, this, that, and the other, they have been very vulnerable. And they play down to their competition. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they either blow out Clemson or if they go into a dogfight with Clemson and have to limp into the Peach Bowl with Arizona State. But I'll call it right now, we got a lot of people who watch, and there's a lot of people who are invested financially into what spreads are and everything. That hypothetical line is 14.5 on Texas.
Yeah.
I bet the paycheck on plus 14.5 for ASU. Hell, I bet the money line on ASU in that matchup. Like, that is a very favorable matchup. Now, obviously, getting to the semifinal, I think that's where it gets very, very challenging. But the more and more I look at this matchup, and, we'll know by next weekend who the Sun Devils are facing, it seems like it's more and more playing in the Sun Devils' favor.
Yeah. And I'm honestly looking at this Texas schedule, who they had to go through this year, who are some of the quarterbacks they played. I'm also going to go out and say that I think Sam Levitt will be the best dual threat quarterback this team will have faced all season long. And that's, playing Diego Pavia, obviously, that really is the only. I mean, you got Michigan week what?
Week two, and that was
Michigan week 2.
And that was what? Alex Orji?
Yeah. So,
who's in the portal currently, by the way. So Orji in the portal.
And I think that's just another testament to what the Sun Devils have done this season, and that, again, like the people watching it, like the media covering it, like the teams they're going to face, no one has really expected what this Arizona State team was going to do this season. And going into the college football playoff, I still don't think teams are going to be expecting what they're going to do. And that is also a testament to Marcus Arroyo, who is up for the Broyles Award. And obviously the job Brian Ward has done, defensive coordinator. That's just my 2 cents.
And I also think, too, the big thing that I think benefits Arizona State is that, as we saw in that game on Saturday, the big question for the offense was who was going to step up in the receiving game with Jordan Tyson out. And I think we saw it fairly balanced. Scadaboo obviously got involved in the receiving game a little bit
Yeah.
more, but think about how effective Xavier Guillory. He had 2 catches on the day, both of which went for touchdowns, including, we talked about it. That back, like he's backing into the end zone, he's getting pulled down, and he's kind of just reaching out and grabbing it. That was a huge one. Then obviously, just how about Melquan Stovall, his impact on the game?
Yeah.
Obviously his stats were a little boosted by that huge 63-yard reception in the first quarter on that 4th and 1, get Iowa State off balance with the fake and the play action. But just the Sun Devils' ability to get everybody involved in the passing game, whether that was Stovall, Guillory, Malik McClain. Look, we were waiting to see what he could do.
Big
He
catch
had a
downfield.
huge catch. Shimon
Yeah.
Mateer, that's a huge thing, and I think that keeps defenses unbalanced. When you're game planning for a team and you're prepping for a team, it's easy to game plan to contain one receiver because they're getting the majority of receptions or this, that, and the other. But when you have a balanced receiving attack, it keeps the defense stressed because they don't know who to zone in on at a single time.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see where ASU matches up, who they're going to match up against. We'll obviously know that in the coming weeks. I believe December 20th is the date in which Texas and Clemson will face off against each other. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Let's jump away from ASU, and I want to talk about the transfer portal just a little bit because we've had some former Arizona high school football stars jump in the transfer portal. We'll start with one of them who just recently committed. That's former Saguaro quarterback Devin Dampier, committed to Utah following his offensive coordinator Jason Beck to the Utes.
Yeah,
this is a huge opportunity and really one that has been well deserved and well earned for Devin Dampier.
Arizona was the first. He got only, 2 Power 4 offers in high school. Arizona was one of them. The second one was from Utah. And so I think the big thing for Devin Dampier is that this is a long time coming. We all thought it, that he is a quarterback that can absolutely play at the Power 4 level. He's a guy who says, screw your, you need to be this high, you need to be this way. He's just a ball player, simple as that. And I think this is going to make Utah dangerous. He's a home run threat every time he steps on the field, whether that's making a big pass or he could just scramble and do something with his legs. He is just naturally a hell of a quarterback. And so, I'm very excited to see what he does at Utah. I'm a little scared because, that's going to be a tricky matchup for the Sun Devils next year. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm so happy for him to get this opportunity because, I remember watching him when he was at Pinnacle tearing it up, and then to make the transfer to Saguaro. I was there that night that he backpacked the SaberCats over Hamilton. I know that's a core memory for you, Adam.
Oh yeah.
I remember him backpacking them, just putting the team on his back. I remember
he had what? He had 220 and 4 touchdowns in that game.
224 touchdowns.
Oh my
I
God.
remember the following year where he did it with his arm and he picked apart Liberty in that semifinal.
Yeah.
Undefeated team, and he was a playoff performer. He was a playoff riser. When it was time to play in the clutch, he tore it up, and he just did a lot. And so I'm excited to see what he does with a great O-line, experienced head coach like Kyle Whittingham, and possibly more weapons following him, including a certain running back who was at New Mexico with him, who is also an Arizona high school football alum.
Yep. Eli Sanders. There you go. Talk about a story for him, spending time at Iowa State, and then obviously going to New Mexico, ended up there with Devin, and now, potentially could see them team up again. Eli's still figuring out where he's going. But I do want to talk about another player that is also from Chandler High School, like Eli Saunders, Mikey Keene. Talking about Mikey Keene, I like this. I think of it as like the ultimate road to glory story. You've got, a 3-star recruit, a backup at UCF who at the time UCF was really, really good. Not really, really good, but they were doing really well.
Yeah, they were doing
He
well.
got a few chances to play early on. Transferred, spent 2 years at Fresno State, and absolutely balled out those 2 years he was there. And now he gets to go somewhere potentially P4, and be special, and perhaps could even go to the Big 12. I think that he definitely has the caliber and the talent to be a Big 12 quarterback.
100%. And, this is a guy who's all he's ever done is win. Never
Yeah.
lost a start in high school. He was perfect in high school. Got the Fresno State, and he still won initially once he was there. Obviously, during his time at UCF, I mean, I'm sure people remember his bowl game appearance against Florida, a game that UCF was very much a huge underdog in, and he picked
Yeah.
apart that SEC defense and went to work. And so, no, we saw Mikey Keene firsthand and what he could do against a Power 4 defense last year after what he did to that Arizona State defense and how he tore them apart. But yeah, Mikey Keene is definitely a quarterback I would love to see get that opportunity to play at the P4 level again, and I think he's going to get that opportunity to get a starting job just because of the fact that whether people like it or not, people think this is an insult. It's not. He's a great game manager. He's
Yeah.
not going to do nothing.
He has a really high football IQ.
He's not going to force anything. He's going to make smart reads. He's going to make smart plays. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. Like, he's not going to kill you consistently with the deep ball, but his intermediate accuracy, those balls in between the hashes, 15 to 20 yards, hitting a guy in stride, that's where he could do damage. And I really do believe that there's a couple of systems out there where I'm like, man, he could really make something happen. UCLA is a team that stands out to me as a potential target for him. There's a couple of other teams throughout Power 4 land who can definitely do something for him. Possibly even Auburn. There's a lot of opportunities for Mikey Keene, and I'm very excited to see where he lands because I really do believe he's going to be starting in a Power 4 next year.
Well, your Auburn Tigers just got a new quarterback, didn't they?
If they did, it must have been today because I have not heard it. Oh, well, we did bring in a 5-star QB, a 5-star freshman, but Hugh Freeze has made it clear he wants to bring in a portal guy, and they have not brought in a portal guy yet.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking Hank Brown. Hank Brown
was at
just
Auburn.
transferred to Iowa.
Yeah, he just transferred to Iowa. No, he was a backup to Peyton Thorne. So yeah, just I know the Tigers are looking at some quarterbacks. They're looking at quarterbacks from all different levels, so be interesting. And like I mentioned, they have a 5-star who is going to wait his turn for 1 year, it seems, and kind of just learn the ropes. And Mikey Keene would be a great quarterback to learn the ropes from just because of his football IQ and just what he could do with great weapons, as we saw with that undefeated Chandler teams he was on.
Let's jump to the school that's just down the road on Arizona Avenue. Another local Chandler, another kid out of Arizona, out of Hamilton High School. Alex McLaughlin, 2-time All-American, defensive back over there to NAU, did a phenomenal job his 2 years there. Basically jumped into a starting role and took advantage of it at the FCS level. And teams have come calling for him since he's hopped in the portal. A lot of former Pac-12 schools, Arizona, Colorado, Cal, Washington, a lot of the West Coast schools coming after him, San Diego State. What kind of potential could Alex have for a team that's looking for a really strong linebacker?
I think he has the potential to be an NFL draft pick. I think he has the potential to be an NFL draft pick. I think he has the potential to be an FBS All-American. You talk about what he was able to do at Northern Arizona. I mean, this is a guy who flies to the ball, smart player, one of the smartest players you will see on the field. It seems like he can just telegraph where the play is going. I think part of that was learning from some of the other vets he had around him. Another superstar linebacker up at NAU like Tommy Ellis, another Arizona kid who we learned from. Just you can drop him back into coverage to make a play, or you can have him stop the run. It seems like he could just do it all out there. I really like Alex McLaughlin a lot, and I'm very excited because this is a guy who I felt he kind of was underappreciated and under recruited in high school. I mean,
Totally. Yeah.
Cody Cameron, a good friend of ours, he loves this kid to death. I mean, he just raves about how talented he is, and
Yeah.
I can't help but agree with him. I mean, all you gotta do is put on the tape. There's a reason why these teams are coveting him. These aren't just small time offers; these are big time offers. When you look at that linebacker room and how senior heavy it is, it would be awesome to see him come home, come back to the Valley, come down the mountain and play at Arizona State. But it wouldn't surprise me if he goes to a system like Eric Schmidt's at SDSU, or to go play for Coach Prime in Colorado, or even go up to that staff over there at Washington. Obviously, they'll be looking for a DC with the younger Belichick going with his father to North Carolina. But this is a guy who has All-American potential, and I think will be an NFL draft pick if he continues on the progression he's playing.
Stopping on that for a second, how about Bill Belichick making his return to football in North Carolina? I think he's going to do extremely well. I think he's going to do more well than people think, because I hate to use this as an example, but talking about Herm Edwards and what his goal was at Arizona State to instill a pro model didn't exactly work, but you could see that like the concept was there of that. There is this, but what I'm saying is Bill Belichick takes that and then multiplies it by 20 and then has the ultimate of like, I think where the line's going to perfectly cross for him is he's got the perfect understanding of like, this is how college sports works. This is how the NFL works. And this is how we can perfectly mesh them together, which essentially is almost like the world we live in today.
Well, I think what'll help Bill Belichick as well is that unlike Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce didn't understand, is that paying players is legal now. And so paying players and paying for players is legal now. So that pro model is going to work just fine in Chapel Hill.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So you can do that. But in all seriousness, I like when you hear about all the details where he's like, he wants X amount of dollars allocated to assistants. He wants X amount of dollars allocated to NIL, this, that, and the other. I really do think that is going to pay off, because also too, I think there's the allure there for recruits and potential recruits as parents, where it's just like, hey, a lot of people knew about Deion Sanders, knew who Deion Sanders was because of Madden or because of highlights or hearing their families talk about it. These prospects still know who the hell Bill Belichick is. They know about his dynasty run with the Patriots. They know about things. And so that's going to allure potential recruits. But I also think too, I think there's something to be said. And we saw the success ASU had in recruiting when they were bringing it up, but I think Belichick can take that tenfold. He can literally sit in a recruit's house if he's one of the ones who goes on a visit and say, hey, I know what it's like. I coached Gerard Mayo, all-pro linebacker. I coached Junior Seau, all-pro linebacker. I coached Randy Moss, who I don't know if you heard about him today. That news that came out, that was tragic to hear.
I heard he wasn't doing well.
He has cancer. His cancer was between his pancreas and his liver. That's where they found a tumor. He was talking about it on IG Live not too long ago. But yeah, he's definitely in my thoughts and prayers. I heard about that.
Stinks. Yeah, prayers for Randy Moss for real.
No. But like Belichick, like I was saying with Belichick, he could say, like, I've seen what all pro players look like. I've seen the work that it takes to put in. I've seen what they have to do. I know what they have to do. I know what you need to do to get to that point. Let me help you get to that point. Because you hear about all the people who are still respect Bill Belichick's opinion. I don't know about you, but like the draft this year, think about his coverage with Pat McAfee. I think we were even talking about it. Like, he seemed like he looked like the smartest guy in the city on draft day, just talking to everybody and how he was breaking down tape and breaking down film. So he still got it.
Yeah, and so, that's the other thing too. I think though people don't understand is like he does an extremely good job at evaluating prospects. I mean, we're talking about a guy I think it was a couple years before his final year in New England. He skipped the combine to go watch some random player at Division 3 like practice and evaluate him, and like I don't know if they ended up drafting him or he went on as an undrafted free agent, but there's been multiple occasions, and I mean even look at Tom Brady. I
Yeah.
mean this is a guy who was the 6th round pick and ended up being the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that the football, recruiting, evaluating, training, I don't think any of that is like dwindled or has changed in the
Yeah.
year that Belichick was away from football.
And also, too, I think just the fact that he wanted such a high allocation of funds for his potential assistant coaching staff tells me
Yeah.
that he's going to bring in the best of the best that he can bring in terms of recruiters, in terms of talent evaluators, in
Yeah.
terms of just people who know the college atmosphere, know what to look for, recruits know what to look for in those regards. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue either. I really do think he's going to be successful.
All right, well let's kind of wrap this up here, getting back to some of the other players that jumped in the transfer portal from Arizona. Um, Got to talk about your boy, former Desert Edge Deshaun Warner, who I know you spent a lot of time with over the last couple of years. Have you talked to him at all, just about what his transition is and just how he's feeling everything out?
No, not in terms of like prying and trying to be like, hey, like where you going? Like, hey, what you looking for and everything.
Right.
But more or less like because like to me, I never want like any player or anybody to feel like our relationship is media to player or anything like that. Like
Right.
it's Deshaun to Jacob. It's not reporter Jacob to player in the portal type thing. But I mean, we talked about like I chopped it up with him after Kansas and ASU played here a couple of months ago, and just talk. And he's talked publicly about like his experience and just like learning college ball and the transition from it. But all things considered, I mean, this is a guy who played well over 200 snaps this season
Yeah.
at the college level. He started a couple of games. The stats aren't going to jump off at you. If you're just stats watching, you're probably thinking like, what's the big deal about this guy? But I think, and I've said this publicly, and I just want to make it clear that these are my words. These aren't Deshaun's words or anything at all. But if you watch Kansas a lot this year, it is hard, especially as a defensive lineman. It is hard to really affect the game when you are getting rotated out. And all like Kansas had a 4-man front. They were rotating all
Yeah.
4 guys or 3 out of their 4 guys almost every other snap. It is hard to get into a rhythm of a game and hard to pick up on habits of who you're lined up against and how to attack them and do this, that, and the other when you are constantly being subbed out and you're not able to get into a rhythm. That's part of why Kansas's defensive line as a whole underperformed this year compared to last year. It's a
Yeah.
new defensive line coach. It's a new sort of defensive staff overall for the most part. And so it was just very tricky when you just watch. You could see him, Dean Miller, DJ Witters, a couple of others who are on that line really struggled to get into a rhythm this year. And so I would like to see DJ get into a position where he could go somewhere and be on the field and not have to worry about getting yanked off every other play
Yeah.
for just because they want to keep everybody fresh. Like at a certain point, screw keeping everybody fresh. You got to stop somebody. There's a reason why Kansas isn't playing for a bowl game or prepping for one because you kept everybody too fresh. Like, let's call a spade
Yeah.
a spade. And so, when I look at him, there's a reason why Missouri, SMU. He's got a couple of others who he hasn't posted. I'm sure he hasn't posted yet, but there's a lot of schools coveting him because they saw him get on the field. They saw what he can do and saw the potential of what he can be. And so, I look at him, and this obviously, like I said, want to preference people. This is just my opinion based off what I'm thinking and seeing. Kalen DeBoer and that staff at Washington, they loved him. They wanted him badly. They're now at Alabama. That's a team that could be targeting him. I know Jed Fish and that staff really wanted him. They didn't make the top 5, but that staff who's now at Washington wanted him.
Yeah.
Texas was in his final 3. Texas really wanted him bad. They wanted him bad. And so That's the team to watch. Michigan State, Jonathan Smith and that former Oregon State staff. There was a reason why they were in the Final Three. There was a reason why it came down to Kansas, Oregon State, and Texas. That staff knows how to recruit, and that staff has probably got a very close eye on what DJ's looking like, because I mean, there's another DE
Yeah.
player up there right now in Gavin Brocious, and so there's a lot of different destinations. Obviously, I'm sure Arizona State's going to be trying to gun for him heavy because of what they're going to need at the defensive end spot. That goes without saying. But I'm very excited to see where DJ lands, because I wholeheartedly believe that he's a game changer and that in the right situation, he could just go to work.
There's one more player I want to talk about, and I think it's a player that every single coaching staff in the country is going after. And although we don't really see anything, you kind of just know that it is. That's former Pinnacle tight end Deuce Robinson, who honestly, for me, was a bit of a surprise, but not a surprise at the same time. I was a little surprised that he was the certain wideout from USC that was entering the transfer portal. I expected it to be someone different. Then obviously we saw Deuce. So that caught me a little bit by surprise, but I'm also not surprised by the fact that, you know, given USC's quarterback situation at the moment and just kind of the down years offensively they've been having, even though they've been feeding him the ball, they've been getting the ball and he's been making plays. I totally understand where he's coming from, trying to go somewhere and get a better opportunity.
Yeah, Deuce Robinson is probably going to be, when it's all said and done, one of the most coveted players, and that enters the portal this cycle. I mean, this guy's an NFL prospect through and through.
Yeah.
This is a guy who could be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft when it's all said and done. I mean, that's how special and how gifted this guy is as
Could have been a top 10 pick in the MLB draft.
Exactly. And so when you look at how great he is and just what he can bring to the table, it's not a surprise at all whatsoever that he is as coveted as he is in the portal. And this is a guy, like, I know that Notre Dame and that staff, they want him bad. That's from what I've heard and what's kind of leaked out on Twitter from Notre Dame beat reports and everything, that's their number one target on their board. That's the number one guy that Notre Dame is gunning for right now, and as it should be. And I think what people got to understand is, like, he lines up at receiver. He isn't a tight end in college right now. He's playing wide receiver. He lines up out there inside and outside. His speed is getting better. He's physical. He can go up and high point the ball with almost a 7-foot wingspan. So it's just, he's got a lot of special physical gifts that make him coveted. But I also want to highlight something, because I know we got a lot of ASU fans watching. Kenny Dillingham was hired to be the head coach at Arizona State on November 27th, 2022.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Where was Kenny Dillingham 5 days later?
The same place I was on a cold Friday night watching Deuce Robinson destroy Castile in the 6A semifinals. And it was the first place Dillingham went. Like, basically after he got hired. That was the first game he went to.
Yep.
And I think something important to note, because in so much in college recruiting, you see, coaches will, they might make several stops in one night. They might go to a place, watch a guy, and then go to another place, watch a guy. Kenny Dillingham was there, and I should say Sean Aguano was there from start to finish. They were there the whole game just to watch Deuce. And at this point in time, Deuce was undecided whether or not he was going to play football or baseball. Wasn't even close to making a decision on USC. And Kenny Dillingham's thought was, you know what? I'm going to go out and try to recruit this kid.
Yep. And what's also interesting too is, like, it was the same situation the following week when Deuce and them were playing at Sun Devil Stadium for the state championship. And so I obviously, we're not in the ASU war room. We don't know what their board looks like. Yeah. I would be very remiss. I would bet a lot of money that Deuce Robinson is on that board and is high on that board, because when you think of the mold of some of the ASU's best receivers in recent years, that size, that separation, that speed, it fits. Deuce Robinson checks a lot of those boxes, and on top of it too, I think what Deuce provides as well is a great threat opposite Jordan Tyson. if you have a guy who creates separation, play more underneath, do all the intermediate stuff, is a great possession guy like Jordan Tyson, who will keep defenses honest. But you have Deuce Robinson on the other side. Suddenly, your passing game looks so much more frightening than it did. And
Yeah.
that's still a good passing game. And it's somebody who you look at Sam Levitt with. Sam Levitt, he will be a redshirt sophomore next year. Deuce Robinson's going to be a redshirt sophomore next year. If you're picking up ball and putting down, that's the best type of connection to have, where you can have that connection for another year or two with your quarterback and both
And I
go
think,
together.
yeah, totally. And I think something also, because I've seen this on Twitter just floating around, just about, oh, well, Shema Mateer is coming back. So ASU's already got their starting tight end. You don't want to break that up. Deuce Robinson isn't just a tight end. He's not. The style of play that Deuce Robinson plays and the style of play that Shema Mateer plays are two
Wildly different.
Two completely different skill sets. And so with your point, we're talking about a guy in Jordan Tyson and a guy in Deuce Robinson who are very similar in age and year. And obviously you got a guy in Malik McClain coming back next year. I'm going to go on the record and say this right now. I think there's a very good chance that Derek Eusebio is ASU's starting slot receiver next year. I think he has a very good chance at fighting for that position. And then you also got to think about the guys ASU's bringing in. Cam Dyer, who although will probably spend a little bit of time, although actually no, because this morning on Bickley and Murata, it was announced that Jeff Sims will be coming back. So ASU's got their backup quarterback next year. And then obviously your third string will probably be a third string battle between Navi Bruzon and Michael Tollefson. So
Go Navi.
I really think that kind of eliminates the question of, is Cam Dyer going to spend some time at quarterback after winning back-to-back, New Mexico Gatorade Player of the Years. Yeah. So you've got Cam Dyer, you've got a very speedy, quick wide receiver in Corey Butler coming from Corona Centennial. And so
you need size. You need size.
Yeah.
You need size on the perimeter. You need somebody to get separation. Deuce Robinson's that guy. And so I think, like, I'm not going to crystal ball it or anything, but it would not surprise me one bit if we are talking in a couple of weeks, hey, Deuce Robinson's coming home. Like, that wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, it will definitely be something to keep our eyes on. Jacob, I appreciate you. It's been almost an hour here with you chilling on here, but talking about a lot of stuff. You're going out to Perry Sunny Slope tonight?
No. I'm going to bed.
There you go.
Nah, I'm going. No. For those who don't know, Hypermark, we're about to take the basketball coverage from all of us to another level. I have my own.
Shout out Whataburger.
I got my own personal games of the week. So for me, my basketball schedule doesn't start till Monday. Premier Girls Match O'Connor at Millennium. That'll be the start of my basketball coverage. But no, I'm going to get some sleep because tomorrow morning, obviously, I'm waking up. I'm heading over to Chateau Lux for the adultery luncheon. I'll be providing some coverage for Hypermark for that. And kind of privately showing love to Desert Edge because Jamar Beal-Goins and Elijah Sherman-Fox are two of our guys who are receiving recognition. They got medallions. I'm not sure if either one of them will be a finalist for the award, but just to be invited is great.
Yeah.
So I'll have coverage there for the Dotery Award for Boys Football Player of the Year and Girls Flag Football Player of the Year, which if it's not Caitlin Jewell, I might crash out on Twitter.
That's a very fair. It's a very fair point.
So that's what it's looking like this weekend.
There we go. All right. Well, Jacob, I'll get you out of here. Appreciate you as always coming on, chatting about ASU, chatting about football, and just everything in between. So you have a good night, and we'll see you later down the road.
Yes, sir.
Adios. Jacob Sliger, a college football writer at Hypermark. He also does basketball writing. He does everything in between. He does a lot of stuff for Hypermark. All right, let's kind of preview a bit of the weekend. Like I did at the beginning of the show, obviously heard me mention Jacob Perry and Sunny Slope taking on each other tonight in Phoenix. Should be a really good matchup. The Suns are taking on the Jazz at about 7:30. Suns currently 10th in the Western Conference. Not something I thought I'd be saying at this point in time, but I am. Probably a big game tomorrow. ASU taking on number 9 Florida in Atlanta. Possibly could be a good omen for if ASU gets the win, if they go play the Peach Bowl, in the Peach State. This is the first time ASU basketball has played in 11 days ever since their win. I believe, what was the last team they played? Was it Cal Poly or was it San Diego? I don't know. It's 11 days. A lot has happened in 11 days. Coach Hurley was at the Big 12 championship last week, so that's pretty cool to see. But talking about this game in particular, I think for ASU basketball, and this might be a bit of a hot take or not, I think that this game against Florida will tell the tale of how the rest of the season will go. I think if there's 3 scenarios that could happen here. It's ASU gets an upset, and if I think they do, and if they do, which, by the way, ASU on the cusp of the AP top 25, they have like 143 votes. They're currently 27th, technically 27th in the AP poll. I think if ASU gets an upset over Florida, obviously that boosts them in the AP poll, and I think that sets them on a really good trajectory heading into Big 12 play. I think if ASU keeps it close, we're still going to see kind of the same production we've seen from this ASU team the last couple of weeks, which is keeping games close. I'm still not sure what's going on with the team in terms of, are they playing down to their competition, or are these other teams just really competitive? And is that just a testament to Hurley's scheduling and what ASU has done with the strength schedule this season? And then obviously the third, if ASU gets completely blown out by Florida, I don't think that's a good sign for the rest of the year to come for the Sun Devils. So going to be an interesting game tomorrow. Austin Nunez, who transferred back to ASU after being at Ole Miss last season, is out for the year with a foot injury per John Rothstein earlier this week. I also just saw that Frankie Collins, who was a guard at ASU last year, is going to miss the rest of the season with a broken foot, which stinks. So I wonder if he'll try to get some sort of medical red shirt or something like that. And try to play another league, because I think this would have been his last year in college basketball. So hope he heals up and everything's good with him. Also going on tomorrow, the Army Navy game. This seems like it's shaping out to be a bit more of an exciting Army Navy game than maybe in recent years. I think it's just because both teams are so good this year. I know at a point in time a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the possibility of Army Navy playing each other in the American Conference Championship, which would have been absolutely insane if they would have had to play last week and play again this week. But good thing that didn't happen. I think Army got the win in the American Championship. So this game's going to just be interesting. Navy's Jolly Rogers uniforms are sick. I don't really have I'm not associated with either the team, Army or Navy. I always like the cheer for the team who has the coolest uniforms every year. And so I think I'll probably be cheering for Navy this year because I love their uniforms. They're also the underdog. So I got to root for the underdog. High school basketball game that's going on tomorrow. Regis Jessup, it's taking on Valley Christian. Valley Christian off to a 6-1 start. Trying to get that 4-peat this season. So that game could be interesting. And then also tomorrow, the Heisman Trophy presentation is tomorrow. So definitely turn on your TVs tomorrow night to watch that. Sunday, Arizona Cardinals trying to get a win. I don't even know. And they're taking on the Patriots. I don't even know if the Patriots have their quarterback situation figured out. It's just been weird all year for them. They've had several. I couldn't even tell you. I know Drake May's there. And I know they've had a couple other guys that have been, up and down all year. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully that's a game that the Cardinals can win. Because they've lost their last 3 in a row, which 2 of them were to Seattle. And I do not like Seattle. I think they have the worst fan base in the NFL, and I do not like Seattle. And then Suns also have one more game this weekend, taking on the Trailblazers on Sunday night. So lots of sports going on in the Valley, lots of sports just happening in general this weekend. So tune on your TV, watch some stuff. because it's going to be another eventful sports weekend as we're nearing Christmas. 12 days to Christmas. I got my other hand. I got the Christmas tree back here, a little celebratory. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Weekend Preview at Home Edition. Got the good old Weekend Preview sign right there. It's perfect. So appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Appreciate Mason coming on to talk some girls flag football. Appreciate Jacob being great as always, coming on to talk about ASU, the transfer portal, former Arizona high school football players, and of course Bill Belichick too, because that seems to be the biggest sports news of the week. So hope everybody has a fun and safe weekend, and we'll see you all back here 4 o'clock next Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody.